Hello and welcome to the New York Farm Bureau's weekly news bite, bringing you the latest news from the New York State agriculture world.
Farming can be a very stressful profession, and too often, that is not talked about. Hello, I'm Steve Ammerman, Director of Communications for New York Farm Bureau, and welcome to New York Farm Bureau's News Bites podcast. This week marks National Suicide Prevention Month. It's an important reminder that we all need to think about our mental health as much as our physical health and pay attention to the warning signs that our loved ones or friends may be struggling. Last December, a poll conducted by American Farm Bureau Federation found 61% of farmers and farm workers are experiencing more stress and mental health challenges compared to 1 year ago, but they're also seeking care because of that increased stress. Still, 63% of people in agriculture say a stigma remains around mental health. Well, we're fortunate here in New York State to have an organization called New York FarmNet. It's a confidential service where people in agriculture can receive personal and family consulting services to help in times of crisis. And their services are expanding thanks to a new grant from USDA that is helping FarmNet train others to recognize when someone may be struggling. We begin today's discussion with Jennifer Schwytzer, a family consultant with New York FarmNet.
My background is in social work and mental health. So I have a license to practice social work in New York State, and I am hired as a consultant. I am a personal consultant with New York FarmNet. I've always wanted to do social work in the agricultural field and learn more about that. And I never knew that something existed to actually do that until I came across New York FarmNet. And so I go into farms and ag businesses, and I come in with the approach from a social work mental health standpoint. And so I am working usually with a financial consultant as a collaborative model that we have and helping with identifying any mental health concerns. We are helping with communication. We are just additional supports for people who might not have those supports in the community or in their surrounding areas. We go in with an array of different services and opportunities that we as mental health professionals can provide.
And really, that's the goal of FarmNet. It's geared towards people in farming naturally, but it is a combination of both mental health services, but also financial services, because oftentimes those two things are connected.
Yes.
And it's really an important role. So what is the value and what does FarmNet provide people who call FarmNet seeking help?
So from the get-go, you are connected again with that collaborative approach. So if you are calling in with strictly financial needs, if you think that that's kind of what's going on for you and that's the priority, you're still going to be paired with a personal consultant as well. Because like you said, oftentimes those two are linked. So if there are financial stressors, there might be some personal stressors as well that, aren't readily seen or admitted to. And we can go in with our financial consultant and kind of just assess the situation that's going on and really go in with an approach from two different angles. And having those two different approaches is going to be what moves us forward in goals and in planning. If somebody calls in with estate planning, there's usually some communication stuff going on as well that a personal consultant might be able to help with that maybe our financial folks don't always know how to handle when those difficult conversations come up.
When you say communications, you mean one generation talking to the next generation about taking over the farm and how that's going to work.
Yeah, that's come in big time lately, especially I'm in Western New York, and it's been a big piece of the calls that we've got recently is those stressors when it comes to, maybe the farmer isn't quite ready to let go of his or her farm and pass it down to the next generation. And how do we come together and facilitate some of those really, really difficult conversations? So not only do we have the financial estate planning piece there, we also have those difficult conversations coming up as well.
It is a stressful time for farmers all across the board. Certainly the pandemic created issues for farms, high prices. Farming is a hard job to begin with. There's been a lot of dry and weather and drought conditions across the state. So there's a lot of things weighing on farmers' shoulders. What are some of the other calls that you may be getting?
Yeah. So we have had, a couple of calls with I am just overwhelmed with maybe the debt that I'm in. I am overwhelmed, feeling depressed with the financial crisis of the farm. So there have been a lot more calls related to personal stressors with COVID and the prices going up, because that does spiral down to so many other concerns and areas of struggle for farmers.
You said something earlier of things that might not be talked about or want to be addressed. And really, when it comes to mental health, there are a lot of stigmas out there. And a lot of farmers may not want to admit that they're having issues or that they're struggling. Is that something that people contend with and that you see?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why when you automatically send out a personal consultant with the financial consultant, you start to build a relationship. That first call that we make to them, they may not go into detail about, maybe some of those personal struggles. But when you build that relationship, more and more can come out. They trust you a little bit. We're actually going out to the farm and we're building those relationships with the farmer to be able to confide in us, to help them in whatever they are struggling with.
It's National Suicide Prevention Week. And if somebody who's listening to this, they may know somebody that they're concerned about, or maybe they are missing
Mhm.
the signs
Yeah.
because they don't know what those signs are. What should people be looking for with a friend, a loved one, a partner, that someone could be in distress?
I think this is such an important topic and we could probably go on, but I think the biggest thing is trust your gut and ask questions. If something seems off, have the conversation, be uncomfortable, ask, are you thinking about suicide? Have you thought about suicide? If somebody is, acting a little bit differently than they normally present, or if somebody's isolating or, identifies that they're feeling depressed, you may notice they're worrying a lot more than they were previously. If you're noticing something that just seems a little off, ask the questions, be uncomfortable, have that conversation.
That's such a good point of being uncomfortable, because it can be hard for the other person as well to feel like they're invading somebody's space or
Yeah.
talking about something too personal. So that's really good advice. Now, FarmNet is doing a series of trainings, and you're actually expanding who's conducting some of the trainings. And this is something where Farm Bureau is also partnering with FarmNet. Talk about the grant program and what New York FarmNet is doing.
Yeah, so this is such an amazing opportunity. It's through the USDA NYFB grant, and we were awarded funds to have 16 individuals trained in mental health first aid, which is a presentation we are able with our partners to bring to ag businesses, farmers, anybody that's working with farmers in the community, to spot and identify signs of mental health concerns and what to do. So it's not necessarily to diagnose and treat, but it's to recognize those signs and symptoms and have a plan to help them get the help that they need. And so we have mental health first aid that has rolled out throughout New York State. And we also have our suicide prevention, which is another piece that our staff at New York FarmNet were trained in to provide to ag businesses, farm communities, farmers. And that is to identify the signs and symptoms that suicide is prevalent and how we can manage and kind of navigate if we think that somebody is suicidal or if we think that they might need mental health intervention. So these two programs have been so amazing to be a part of, and they are officially rolled out to all of our New York State ag businesses, farmers, anybody who wants them.
Good. That's an important training to have
Yeah.
available. And I love how you put it too, mental health first aid. That's a phrase I hadn't heard until we started talking about this program, because so many people, you think of first aid as CPR, helping someone if they break their arm, whatever it may be physically, but we often forget about the mental piece of that. And calling it mental health first aid is really smart.
And it's a way to link mental health with physical health. We want mental health to be part of the same conversations that physical health is. If you broke your leg and you went to the doctor, you would be treated. We want depression, suicide to be treated the same. This is okay to talk about, and this is okay to get treatment for. An update to the suicide prevention line is 988. That can be reached throughout New York State by dialing 988. That's the National Suicide Prevention Line. That number has been updated, so that's really important for everybody to know. But, reach out to our friends at Farm Bureau, reach out to New York FarmNet if people are interested in the mental health first aid course.
Thanks so much, Jennifer. Well, two people taking part in the new FarmNet mental health first aid course are two of our very own here at New York Farm Bureau. Tim Bigham and Todd Heyn are county managers who work closely with our county farm bureaus and members. We spoke with both of them about the program and how it's helping. Here's Tim.
Well, to start out with, New York FarmNet got a grant to expand the number of teachers throughout the state, and Farm Bureau was looked to as a possible source of instructors. Todd and I are part of the training program for New York Farm Bureau, so it was natural that we were asked to be instructors for this, and that's more or less how it came about.
It was a new experience for myself, as not having a lot of experience in the mental health realm before. As Tim had said, we are the New York Farm Bureau trainers and mainly deal with leadership principles and those types of things within Farm Bureau. But the ability to reach out and deliver some mental health first aid training was intriguing and just a way to add another tool to our toolbox.
So talk about the trainings. What are some of the things that you're helping to teach people to better understand, to help with, and who are you looking to reach?
Really what the mental health first aid training is, it's an 8-hour training course that provides, just like CPR training provides the ability for folks to deliver on-site immediate care to somebody who's in need of that. Mental health first aid training does exactly the same thing. It will teach the participants, the risk factors that go into mental health issues. It teaches through a 5-step action plan on what to do and how to do it. And then finally, it gives those folks, once you've identified somebody that is having a mental health issue, it gives them options to seek treatment for that. No different than, if somebody's suffering a cardiac issue, afterwards they're going to be referred to and suggested you go see a specialist in that particular area.
And Tim, you have conducted one of these trainings already. Talk about that experience and how it went, and what kind of feedback did you get from participants?
First of all, mental health first aid training is kind of like drinking from a fire hose. And everybody that's instructed it and probably those who have taken it have all kind of said the same kind of thing. There's a lot of information in a short period of time. As Todd mentioned, it's an 8-hour training, but we pack a lot into that 8 hours. 8 hours seems like a long time until you try to put the training in there, and then it seems pretty short. But the reaction that we received from the first training was all positive. The comments that we got back were that it was very helpful and good information to have, and they were all very appreciative of receiving that.
And who were some of the people that attended the training in terms of their jobs or their backgrounds?
We actually were targeting the agriculture community, but it is open to beyond that. There were really only 2 that were agricultural professionals, and then the others were from a variety of backgrounds. Some church folks, we had some people from schools, we had EMT. It's a smattering of folks that we were instructing.
Going forward, how many trainings are you looking to do? Or is it, people who are interested and they can come to you and say, we would like to organize a training? What is this process going to be like down the road?
I believe with the FarmNet grant that they received to train us as trainers, part of that grant was the expectation that we would do approximately 2 trainings per person, at least to get started. And then we'll see where it goes from there. That's our plan moving forward. As Tim had mentioned before, the people that we're looking at trying to reach out to is not necessarily the actual farms and farmers, but those other agricultural professionals who commonly interact with those folks, cooperative extension folks, feed dealers, tractor dealers, anybody that comes in contact on a regular basis with farmers, because they're the ones that we are specifically targeting with this, who are under stress, who may be experiencing either short-term or long-term mental health issues. And the more people that can recognize those issues and then know how to treat them, and not necessarily treat, but recognize, work with that person to get the proper treatment along the way, the better off we all are.
Why is it important for New York Farm Bureau to be a part of this and be engaged in this area?
I think Farm Bureau cares about the whole person. We're a family-oriented organization, and we care about the whole person and the whole family. And there's a lot of times when a mental health challenge affects one part of the farm or one part of the family, and to just kind of go forward like it's not that important to the functioning of the whole person is reckless. And I think Todd and I really want to be part of changing that.
For both Tim and Todd, the mental health training has become personal as well.
I would say that one of my values and one of my takeaways from this and doing this training is that I do have a tendency to hold things like this that I don't understand or know how to deal with at arm's length. I kind of wanted to be able to do better anyway. I'm not sure I'm going to be perfect yet, but I want to do better at addressing the things that our members deal with.
Yeah, and for myself, it's something that I now, knowing what to look for, it's constantly there in the forefront of my brain now as I'm interacting with folks, listening to them, and going into the Mohawk Farm Progress Show on Friday and Saturday this week. And that'll be one of the things is you talk with so many different people there. Not everybody's in a great chipper mood. You're constantly reading the tea leaves, so to speak, when you're interacting with folks, once you know what to look for, what the signs are, what the symptoms are, that kind of thing.
Thanks so much to Todd and Tim for their time and for making a difference. Well, here are a few resources to keep handy in case you or a loved one may need some help. New York FarmNet can be found online at NYFarmNet.org, or you can call their number 1-800-547-3276. And as Jennifer mentioned, the National Suicide and Crisis Hotline is 988, much like 911, but it is 988. And finally, American Farm Bureau Federation has a number of online resources through its Farm State of Mind program. Just go to fb.org for more on that. Well, thanks for joining us today for this important topic, and please spread the word. If you like what you heard today, give us a positive review where you listen to this podcast, and also a thank you to Seth Moser-Katz for editing today's podcast. Until next time, make sure to thank a farmer for all that they do.